kind of a special relationship to Hanover because you're a Scorpion fan. Tell me about it.
Okay, so I just read a book called German Metal Machine because I am obsessed with UFO. I'm obsessed with the Scorpions. I first heard UFO when I was 15 years old, and like 6 months later I heard the Scorpions. And from that time on, I've been the hugest fan, and I still am to this day. And so, as we were flying into Hanover, I realized, wait, this is where everything went down in that book. You know, Michael Schenker and Rudolf Schenker are from Langenhagen. That's Langenhagen. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Langenhagen. Yeah.
As well as Ulrich Roth and Matthias Jabs and Francis Buchholz and Klaus Meine. And I thought to myself, you know, I actually have a musical connection to this place. You know, it's part of my musical legacy. If it wasn't for Michael Schenker and Ulrich Roth specifically, and Matthias Jabs, you know, I'd still be probably, you know, listening to Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton and playing blues licks, you know, minor pentatonic stuff. But it's when I heard Michael Schenker and Ulrich Roth and heard their playing and thought, wait, these guys have something different to offer that none of these guys are even touching, you know? And I naturally gravitated to what Michael Schenker and Ulrich Roth were doing because it was so different, so expressive, so European sounding, so exotic to my ear that I've pretty much forgot about these other guys for like a good 5 or 6 years and studied Michael Schenker, studied Ulrich Roth, studied Matthias Jabs, and, you know, eventually it became part of my guitar style. I mean, every night, you know, or every time I pick up my guitar, you know, Michael Schenker lick is bound to come out within the first 5 minutes. Ulrich Roth lick, you know, or the phrasing or the influence or inspiration. I mean, it's huge to me. It's a huge part of me.
Without Scorpions, no.
Without Michael Schenker, without Rudolf Schenker, without Ulrich Roth or Matthias Jabs, I would be a different guitar player writing different guitar riffs. And so it's, you know, I owe a lot to those guys. And, you know, like I said, they're part of my own musical legacy, which started here. So, you know, I'm very proud to be here, to be talking about, you know, these guys and how they've been such a huge influence on me and a part of my musical life and always will be.
So your legacy started in Hanover or with the Scorpions?
Well, that part of my playing, yeah.
My first concert was in Hanover, where Monsters of Rock in 1991, and I think your concert was it where AC/DC, Metallica, Metallica, Queensryche, and the Black Crowes when I was 11 years old. You got any memories of this concert?
Yeah, it was like 1987?
No, 1991.
1991, and it was oh yes, I do, because that was the same package that went over to Moscow. So yeah, absolutely. I remember being here, and Rudolf Schenker came to the show. Him and his family came to the show that day. I remember seeing Rudolf going, "Hey, Rudolf," because again, you know, whenever I see anything that has anything to do with UFO or Scorpions, you know, I light up.
Let's talk a little bit about the new album. I've heard the 3 tracks that are released and they sound really angry, heavy, raw. What can I expect when I buy the album on Friday?
More anger, more rawness, and more energy.
So where does it come from? Normally people, when they grow, get a little bit older, they like get mellow, they get relaxed, they think, how do you keep the energy?
Well, see, you know, as musicians in a rock band, we're not really allowed to grow up. That was a joke. You know, I can say this with absolute authority. You know, I have a lot of anger in me. I know James has a lot of anger, and I know Lars has a lot of anger. And I know, as a matter of fact, that my anger, it was just because of like just my roots, you know, how I was brought up, my childhood wasn't that great, you know, made a well of anger just inside my soul. James, same thing. Lars, same thing. A lot of anger. You know, when we got together, we were four angry young men and you know, what brought us together was the way we played, with anger, with aggression, distortion, energy, rawness. We found each other and we saw in each other a similar anger, and that's why we gelled. That's why we came together. And so, speaking on an emotional intelligence level, emotionally aware level, that anger really never goes away. People learn how to process it. You know, they learn how to work through it, work with it, or they just tamp it down. You know, it's not there anymore. I'm not angry. Glug glug glug. No, I'm not angry. Glug glug glug. So it never really goes away. You know, you just learn how to deal with it. For me, that well of anger, I can tap into it any time, in any sort of situation. And it's really helpful when I tap into that anger when I'm playing my guitar, and particularly my guitar solos. And even the way I play is very aggressive. You know, my right hand technique is really heavy. I use a really hard pick. I pick the notes really heavily. And I beat up my left hand or my right hand because I'm always hitting my guitar and slamming it. And it's a therapeutic thing for me to play guitar because it helps me process that anger that just, you know, it's just always there. So on a creative level, it's really easy for us to be angry. It's harder for us not to be angry.
Okay, so is there any like message in the album? Because we have, you said yesterday you've been to the Bataclan, we have American elections with Donald Trump, there are so many going on in the world. Is there any like political message, or is it just a personal?
No, you know, James, as you know, as the writer of the lyrics, purposely steers away from any sort of political situation. You know, he tends to want to be apolitical, and I don't blame him, because as the focal point, the main focal point in the band, he has a lot of influence, you know, and he doesn't want to be associated with either side. You know, he sees that as a real problem, and it's true. It can be a real problem for him as the focal point of the band. And so, as a result of that, you know, a lot of his lyrics are apolitical too. They can be absolutely interpreted in a political way, absolutely, because of the brilliance of his lyrics and how analogous they are, and how deep they're rendered in metaphor. And, you know, you can say Atlas Rise is about, you know, the election very easily, but I know for a fact that it's about something completely different. So, having said that, it's really anything that you want to interpret it to be, whatever works for you. And that's the beauty of James's lyrics.
Is that part of the key of success for Metallica, that you have over so many years that you are not like at a particular time and a particular problem, you can listen to Masters of Puppets and still as a young guy think about my school and my problems today? Is that the key of?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you know, the thing about our music that I've learned over the course of time is that it stood the test of time. You know, a kid who was listening to Master of Puppets when they were 14 years old will probably still be affected by Master of Puppets, you know, 10, 20 years later. Because I know that, you know, when I listened to like, I don't know, like Van Halen's first album when I was, you know, 13 years old or something when it first came out, it spoke to me. It spoke to me a lot, you know. And the lyrics are all about girls and partying and whatnot, but the music suggested other things. And, you know, I got a certain sort of message from that album when I was 13, 14. And it was, obvious, girls, fun, summertime, whatever. As I listen to that album, 30 years later, I get a completely different message, I get a message of, wow, they're the Van Halen brothers and David Lee Roth, and they were just like us. They just, they're probably in a garage. They put that album together, and they were just trying to like make music that they wanted to hear, and that's how I hear it now. The great thing about Master of Puppets is that I think that whatever moment in your life that you're listening to that album, it speaks to you in those terms of just where you're at in your life. I think a lot of our music does that. It almost informs you as to where you're at, in regards to how you're living.
30 years or 35 years as a band, can you remember the first moment when you knew we are a famous band? Was there any particular moment when you thought we made it? Is there any concert or any situation where you recognize, okay, we are a really famous band?
Yeah, after the Black Album came out, I realized that I wasn't able to go anywhere in San Francisco that I wanted to. And the way I found that out was I remember going into a comic book store. And, same comic book store I'd been going to for 10, 15 years and looking through the comics. And I remember looking up, and there's this woman who was staring at me. I was like, all right, whatever. And then she kept on staring at me. I was like, what? Why are you staring at me? And she goes, because you're Kirk Hammett. And I was like, and I thought, I am Kirk. This has never happened before. What's up? No one's ever come up to me in a comic book store and said that to me. And then I kind of realized, I guess that means that we're at a level of recognition now that we've never been at. And I better start getting used to it because, you can't really undo that kind of stuff. You can't say, hey, no, I don't want this, It just kind of happens and you have to adjust. And, well, maybe that didn't happen on the Black Album. Maybe that happened during Injustice for All. Because it was still the 80s. So I think around Injustice for All with, the one video and us selling 3 times as many albums on the outset than Master of Puppets did. I think it was around the time of the one video that things started to change for us.
So, 30 years, how long can we expect that? Last question. How long can we expect okay, sorry.
No, it's just, come on, one more. Oh, yeah.
How long can we expect you guys to go on? Is there any limit, or do you do like the Stones or AC/DC, keep on touring, doing albums?
I love the fact that the Stones are still going. I love the fact that Charlie Watts is almost 80 years old. I saw Buddy Guy about 2 months ago. He is 80 years old. Those 2 80-year-old guys are still doing it well. If they can do it, why can't I? Yeah, I don't want to retire. I want to be able to play guitar, write music, perform, as long as I possibly can. As a musician, I always want to grow as an artist. I always want to create. I always want to perform. And so I don't personally see myself stopping. Whether the band stops or not, I have to accept it. But I'm not going to stop. Just if the band stops for any reason, I'm probably still going to go on. But, having said that, I see us going for as long as physically possible, because all of us have problems now with our working parts. I have problems with my knees, I have problems with my wrist, elbows, and shoulders, and it's all because of playing. You know, it's, well, my knees aren't, but, you know, my wrist, elbows, and shoulders, doing this all the time, you know, it's just like, after a while it gets to you. And I'm not the only one. James has problems, Lars has problems, Rob has problems. They're all physical. As long as we can overcome those physical obstacles and still get on the stage and play songs like fucking Fight Fire with Fire or, you know, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, we'll still be around.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.